Ever run into that situation, like when a friend saying, oh, we're still together, we're committed, but you're kind of left wondering, is that really love or is it something else?
It's a question that I think a lot of us grapple with, even if we don't say it out loud.
For sure. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're using Source's work as a springboard to unpack this whole love and commitment thing.
Yeah, and Source doesn't hold back, starting right off the bat with how complicated even just defining love can be.
Right. It's like we all think we know it when we feel it, but put it into words, not so easy.
Exactly. In fact, Source highlights that there are all these different types of love. You've
Yeah.
got romantic love, the passionate kind. You've got platonic love, like deep friendships.
Right, right.
And then, of course, familial love, the bonds we have with family members.
The whole spectrum of love.
It really is. And Source even gets into these different theories about love.
Yeah, like Sternberg's triangular theory.
Ah,
To be honest, when I first heard triangle and love in the same sentence, I got a little nervous.
laughs. Thankfully, it's less dramatic than, say, a love triangle.
Yeah.
Basically, picture a triangle, right?
Got it, a triangle.
Each point represents a key component of love, intimacy, passion, and you guessed it, commitment.
So are you saying all three of those things have to be present for it to be real love then?
Well, not necessarily. Sternberg argues it's more about how these components combine and balance each other out in any given relationship. Like, you could have a ton of passion with someone, but maybe intimacy is lacking, or vice versa.
Interesting. So even within a single relationship, those different sides of love might ebb and flow over time.
Exactly. And that's one reason why this theory is so fascinating. It gives you a framework to actually think about your own relationships.
Totally. And it kind of makes me think about those relationships where maybe there's tons of passion early on, but commitment isn't really there yet.
Right. And that kind of naturally leads us to the other half of this whole equation, commitment. What does that actually mean in the context of relationships?
Because it's so much more than just saying, I do, right?
Way more. Source breaks down commitment into these different categories, like emotional commitment, being there for each other through thick and thin, being each other's support system.
Yeah, like that emotional security, knowing someone had your back no matter what.
Exactly. And then you have social commitment, which I think is super interesting, like how you navigate friend groups, how you blend with each other's families.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
That can be a big one, especially if your families have very different ways of doing things.
Totally. And of course, there's the financial side of commitment, which can mean so many different things to different people.
I was just thinking that, like, for one couple, financial commitment might mean splitting bills evenly, while for another couple, it's about planning for retirement together. Huge range.
Huge range. And I think that's something Source really highlights. Cultural differences play a huge role in how we view commitment.
That makes sense. What's considered normal commitment in one culture might be totally different in another.
Exactly. It's so easy to just assume everyone's on the same page about this stuff, but that's not always the case.
And that can lead to misunderstandings, hurt feelings,
Yeah.
all kinds of things if you don't talk about it directly.
Absolutely. Communication is key. Which, side note, we'll circle back to later because Source has some great points about that.
Looking forward to it. But okay, so we've got these two big ideas, love and commitment. The question Source really pushes us to grapple with is, can you have one without the other?
Right, like is it truly love if there's zero commitment? Or imagine a couple who's been together forever, they're committed, but maybe that initial spark is gone. Is that love even without the intense feelings?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It makes you wonder, like, what's the glue that really holds a relationship together long term?
Does it have to be just one thing? It's such a complex question.
It is complex.
Yeah.
But okay, let's get practical here. We've done a lot of thinking, maybe a little overthinking. How can listeners actually use this information in their own lives?
Well, luckily, Source doesn't just leave us hanging. They actually offer some really helpful advice, and it boils down to this. Talk about it.
Makes total sense, but it's easier said than done, right?
Oh, for sure. These conversations can be awkward, they can be uncomfortable, but Source is really clear that whether you're in the early stages of dating or you've been with someone for years, being on the same page about commitment is crucial.
Otherwise, you're setting yourselves up for potential conflict down the road, right?
Exactly. And that leads us to, I think, a really interesting final thought for everyone listening. What if instead of thinking of commitment as this end goal, like we made it, we're committed, we're done, what if we thought of it as a continuous conversation?
I love that. Like
Yeah.
commitment as an ongoing process, something you actively cultivate and revisit over time.
Right, because relationships change, people change, and being able to talk openly about commitment as those changes happen, That's what can help love judge and evolve.
Such a great point to end on. Lots to think about, for sure.